Welcome to the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. Now enjoy the show. All right, guys, I want to tell you a little bit about Type 1 Lifting. So Type 1 Lifting is a clothing brand that proceeds of the shirts, the hats, and everything else go to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. This whole t-shirt company started from me taking care of a 5-year-old girl from the emergency department at the Children's Hospital I worked at in Atlanta for a while back. I thought I needed to do a little bit more than kind of just talk about my story. So this is how I started the clothing line, because I wanted to show people that even though diabetics have this really bad disease, we can still do amazing things in our life, and diabetes won't stop us reaching our goals. So go check out type1lifting.com. And, if you have any questions, you can always reach me out on Instagram. It's Type 1 Lifting, and hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey guys, we have a new sponsor for the Type 1 Lifting podcast. The company's called Liberté Lifestyle. So Liberté is a French word meaning freedom, and the company was founded on the desire to have freedom to choose what we want to do with our lives. I actually had the owner, Nicole, on my podcast on episode 28, so if you want to go back and listen to her, she talks about how she started the company and what she wants to do in the future with the company, which is pretty cool. So they actually have knee sleeves, wrist wraps, shirts, shorts. Love the knee sleeves. I have the ice cream knee sleeves, and I love them so much. The neoprene's still good. The seams haven't split compared to other knee sleeves that I have had in the past, and I'm planning to keep these for a very, very long time. So Nicole actually gave me a promo code for you guys too. So it's all capital letters, TYPE, and the number 1. So it's Type 1. So go to libertelifestyle.com, check out what they have in the store, use the promo code Type 1, and save some coin. Now let's go to the episode. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have the creator of Victory Grips, Victor Pellegrino. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. Like I said before, we were like DMing each other back and forth, and you said that you go to bed at 8 o'clock. I was like, holy cow, that's like amazing, first of all. So yeah. How are you able to go to bed so early, first of all?
My natural chronotype, I'm a morning person, always have been. And growing up as a kid, I was the first one out on my block, knocking on friends' doors. My parents would get aggravated at me and tell me to go away. It's too early. I was the first one to pass out of all my friends, in my teens and in college. And then unless we were out drinking and then that's a different story.
Yeah.
That was college. But my natural chronotype is a morning person. My son, he's 7. He is a natural morning person as well. Mm-hmm. And he just naturally will wake up no matter what at around 6:15, 6:30. And we learned real quick, for us to get the best night's sleep we can is to go to bed when he goes to bed. Mm-hmm. And so 8 o'clock it is, and it just feels natural.
Yeah.
So I go to bed by 8:30, and I'm up by 4:30. I'm in my home gym by 5.
Yeah, that's exactly like me. Like I wake up at 4:20, go to the gym, work out, and then my son wakes up at like 6:30 every morning too. And granted, like I wish I can get more sleep, but I typically go to sleep around like 10 o'clock. So I get like 6 or 7 hours of sleep. I know it's not good, but I mean, it's what I got to do,
But some people could operate like that. Some people could totally operate on 6 hours or so sleep, fine, and be totally fine. I think like Jocko Willink, mm-hmm. He's one of those type of characters, but I am not. If I get anything like 7 hours is pushing it. I need like 8 or 9. And there is something that's very like that difference between 7 hours and 8 hours for me is like big. It's huge. But yeah, like my optimum is 9 hours. If I could the days I sleep like 9 hours, I feel like a rock star.
Yeah. Usually for me on weekends, I'll sleep till like 8:30. Cause like my son wakes up at like your son wakes up at like 6:15, 6 o'clock. He'll go downstairs in the basement, play like
Mario Kart on the Wii or get on his tablet in his room and just kind of like just sit there, just chill out. And then, I'll wake up, I'll get back home and I'm like, all right, let's get ready for school and stuff like that. So, I mean, my daughter is exactly like my wife. She'll like sleep till like super late and doesn't care. She gets, she wants to sleep as much as possible.
Yeah. 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 My wife gets a lot of sleep. That's why no matter how healthy or what I do, health and nutrition wise, I think she's going to outlive me.
Yeah. So do you have any other kids at all or just one?
Oh, we are one and done, man. We had our son. I think it's later in life. We were both, my wife and I were both in our 40s, early 40s. And so, they treated her like a dinosaur despite being advanced maternal age. Mm-hmm. And then, so we had blessed with a perfect pregnancy and he came out great. So we're like, we're done. And yeah, that's about it.
I hear you. Like that was when we were talking about having another one. I was like, I'm cool with one. So I was like 30, 37, 38. And I'm like, because having the first one, I was like really nervous of, having one kid, first of all, like this is like a whole new change in life and not like, I don't know what to expect. And so having a second one, and I'm glad I did. Like, don't get it twisted that like, I didn't want the second one, but I'm glad we had both of them, but it's just like, man, having two by yourself, sometimes it's like, holy smokes, even three, like I can't imagine people have like 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah. I think there's I think it really is doubling the workload at 2. And I think from my friends, talking to my friends that have like 4 kids, they're like, after 3, it's like, whatever, they kind of, and everybody ends up taking care of them. It becomes this little village and everybody pitches in and helps each other, but I'm not in that disposition.
Yeah.
We're great with one. I love being a father. It's a challenge. It's fun. It's fulfilling, but I'm good with one.
Yeah. So does your son go into the gym with you to work out with you sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. Yeah. His name is Banks. So Banks will, he'll come down and he the little small TheraBand, little rubber bands.
Yep.
He puts that on his head like a headband and he takes off his shirt and he grunts. And I'm like, do I really do all that? So, but we recently bought an assault runner, and we mainly bought it for him, mm-hmm. Because we were at Power Monkey Camp, and he just jumped on the assault runners and had a good old time. And so we recently bought an assault runner, and he gets on there and he'll do intervals, comes up with his own workouts. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's fun.
I hear you. Yeah. When I had my basement, that like with our home gym, pretty much in our basement, now we like finished it. We would do a thing called next station. So we do like 30 minutes of work, 30 seconds of work, then 10 seconds to figure out like where the next station is. And then, do it again. And we'll do it for a couple of rounds and stuff. And so he uses my old lacrosse sticks as like the barbell to do like Olympic lifts. He has a 3-pound kettlebell and he'll do like the kettlebell. And we had an elliptical too. So he would get on the elliptical and just kind of cruise on it. And he loved it. So it's so cool just seeing them interested in what you're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm big on not pushing him and trying to, you should do what I do or do the things that I think you should do. It's kind of like that dance of like, all right, if you're interested, I'll guide you and I'll help you. I'm not going to push you doing it. But I'm glad he takes to it seems like he takes to fitness more than he does to sport.
Yeah.
Which, it kind of takes after me in that aspect. I kind of I was a gymnast growing up and played various sports, but I always liked training more than I actually liked the competition part of it. I was always big conditioning.
Yeah. So you talked about you being a gymnast. So how did you get even involved with that when you were a young kid?
Yeah, I started late. I started at 12 and I had to beg my parents for over a year to let me go into it. My dad was always into traditional sports, especially baseball. I played baseball for like 9 seasons and for my dad. And my dad was a coach. He just loved baseball. He just like that was his thing. So I indulged him in that sport. And then I saw when I was I saw the '84 Olympics, and that's when it was in LA, and Team USA, the guys took the gold. Of course, Russia was that was back in the Cold War, so Russia boycotted the Olympics then. So it's probably had a chance say in why the USA won gold. But nonetheless, I watched the men's gymnastics, and I was absolutely hooked. I was hooked by what they could do, the strength, the various acrobatic moves, the physique that came with it. I was like, dang, I want to do that. So begged my parents, they finally let me get into it, and just went full bore into it. It's kind of my personality. It's hard for me I'm an all or nothing type of person, and I'm getting better at not being an all or nothing person. But yeah, and then I got into that, and got pretty good for how late I got into it, and the time frame, just because I was just tenacious about training. I would train. I had a pommel horse in my gym. I had rings and in my garage rather, and I would just train whenever I had a chance. And then I realized I wasn't going to go to the Olympics. you know, it was kind of like next level. It's like once I turned 16, I was like, all right, I either go really hard and I go and get into a college program, or I kind of shift gears. And I shifted gears, and that what led me into actually performing acrobat.
Yeah, very cool. Now, I did look at your LinkedIn. I know you haven't been on it in a while, but it says that you were in the Marines for a little while. So I'm a fellow veteran too as well. I was in the Air Force. What made you decide to go into the Marines compared to like all of the other branches?
Because I'm not as naturally smart as you. You know, if I'm thinking back, I was like, dang, I should have either gone Air Force or I should have gone Coast Guard. You know, I just think Coast Guard would have been like, now we're looking back on it, you're on the water, you're on coast, they got cool stations, and you're always doing something fun. You know, you're actually, you know, and it's not necessarily, you know, you're not necessarily always getting shot at doing something fun. But I, in my second year of college, I got into college doing cheerleading and competitive cheerleading. And I was in Miami at the time at Florida International University.
Okay.
And I was kind of, it was something that was always in the back of my mind. It's like, I really wanted to do the Marines, you know, so my grandfather, I'm half Italian, hence the name Pellegrino. He was a World War II vet. He was a scout. First generation Italian American, and he had great stories. A lot of stories he didn't talk about. Yeah. And he served under Patton, and God forbid you speak the name Patton in our household with him around, he'd go nuts because he got marching through Germany because of Patton. But anyway, it was just something I always was intrigued and admired the military. I loved war movies. I liked everything about it, the discipline, the challenge, the stories, the uniforms, not to mention the uniforms. I always think the Marines still think they have the best uniforms, I think.
I agree.
So I was like, I'm at a point with college. It's like, I need some personal discipline. I felt like I was just not focused, and it was at the time was right. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to Recruiter, and I'm signing up. And I signed up for the delayed entry program, finished out the semester that I was in, and then shipped off to Parris Island. And I was in the reserves. And I should have gone officer, but I always wanted those things. It's like, I literally wanted to earn the stripes first. And and say, okay, I was reserves, and then I could have, or enlisted, and then I could have gone officer if that's where life took me. So yeah, I was in the reserves. I was a field radio operator. I served with the 4th Air Naval Gun Liaison down in West Palm, basically called in airstrikes. And then I transferred when I wanted to go back to college. I transferred up to 8th Tanks up in Tallahassee, where I went to school at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had an injury to my wrist, and I and it was actually during the Marines. It was just like doing something, I forget, but it was probably something stupid. And my wrist kept on getting swollen, and I went to a doctor, and he just so happened to be an Army doctor, and he's like, if you want, you could get out because of this. And I'm like, all right, I did what I wanted to do. And so I got out, and then I wanted to be on the field for Division I football. So I ended up joining the cheerleading squad, get to use my acrobatics, get to be and travel with the football team, and got back into performing that way.
Very cool. Yeah. So, it's funny. You were talking about your military story. It's kind of like mine too. Like, I joined the reserves. I was super late doing it. I actually signed up when I was 27 into the Air Force. So I was like a year off from like not being able to be enlisted. And I had 2 degrees at the time. And I was like, I'll just go enlisted because I just feel like it's a better avenue instead of like, because if I went into the reserves as an officer, I'd probably be like working at a desk doing paperwork all day. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather be in the medical side. And so I became a medical tech. And so pretty much I learned so much just being a medical tech instead of just being like sitting at a desk, like pushing papers pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought about going back in. I went to law school for a year. And I think I was doing that for my dad. He was a lawyer. I freaking hated it. I was like, what the hell am I doing? But I went into law school, and I was like, man, and I was going to study entertainment law, but then I was like, if I'm going to really do this and enjoy it, I have to have a higher purpose. Mm-hmm. So I started talking to the Marines again. I had an officer recruiter. I was going to go, since I was already in law school, I was going to go through the JAG. My plan was to do my time as a lawyer in the military, and then maybe switch MOSs or whatever. But as life would have it, I got a call from a buddy of mine who is a well-known director in the theater industry, and he offered me a contract for a year to play Spider-Man in London. So I was like, yeah, I'm out, man. It's kind of like how my life goes. It's like it's like a playground to me. Like I want to dabble into things, like go into things really hard. The wind shifts or things take me in a different path, and it's just kind of like this winding road of creativity and storylines, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and so some of the shows that actually I wrote down. So you did Beauty and the Beast.
I did Beauty and the Beast. Yes,
you did. Germany. You did Spider-Man. You said you've done the Indiana Jones down at MGM in Florida, yep. And then you also did Terminator 2 and Terminator 3D.
Terminator 2 3D. Yep, and at Universal. So I worked at both parks. I worked at Disney MGM Studios, and then Universal theme parks back in early 2000s.
Okay, wow. What was that like whole scene like?
It was fun. And I don't know what's on there. I also trained. I also did Don't Stop the Carnival. So Don't Stop the Carnival was originally a book by Herman Wouk, and Jimmy Buffett was a big fan of Herman in that book. Mm-hmm. And so he brought that story to the stage. And I was always a big Jimmy Buffett fan growing up. It's kind of like our family's beach music growing up in Florida. And that same director, he's like, I'm actually directing the show. I know you're a big Buffett fan. Do you want an audition? I'm like, yes, I want an audition. And so, lo and behold, I made that. I got to work with Jimmy for a whole summer. Had my first martini with Jimmy Buffett, and that was just a blast. It was absolutely amazing, to perform with him. But yeah, doing the whole theater world, that's a different world, and I was, and it was different from the perspective that I wasn't your typical cast member.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a gymnast and a gym rat. I've always been like, my first job was in a gym at 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And have worked in the fitness industry one way or another throughout all this stuff. It always came back to the gym, and I was always a part of a gym one way or another, working, training, being a trainer, training myself. So I was kind of like this jock amongst these theater people, which was interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
A minority in many different aspects, but a lot of fun. I just absolutely love that, the people that I performed with, and we, some of the best memories and friendships that I made and got to travel. So it was a lot of fun, and I get a kick out of being on stage. I feel like I'm a relatively shy person for the most part. But I get on stage and it's a different world. It's just so much fun.
Very cool. And then one thing I saw also, so I think it said on your profile, you actually did the closing ceremonies for the Barcelona Olympics. So what were you doing, and like what was that whole scene like? Obviously, the closing part of the Olympics is like this big, huge extravaganza.
Yeah.
And just seeing all that, like what was your experience with that?
Yeah. So again, I was and that kind of started the whole entertainment kind of mini career. I was again down in Miami, 18 years old. I was a cheerleader, like I said, with the FIU, Florida International. And then the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games had this big open audition. They had various auditions throughout the country. And this particular audition was in Atlanta, and they were hiring 52 dancers and gymnasts combined to do the closing ceremonies. And the whole show or segment of the closing ceremonies was welcoming the world to Atlanta for the 96 Olympics.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
So me and three other friends, two other guys that were Cuban, and my buddies, one of my buddies' girlfriend, we all traveled up. We're like, screw it, road trip, let's go. And we auditioned, didn't know what the hell we were doing, trying to learn all these dance moves. And the director was like, listen, just do your best. And this director was the friend of mine. His name is David Bell. He's the guy that I became friends with, who's ended up hiring me for all these things.
Okay.
And so he's like, just hang in there. Just hang in there. Try to get the moves. Do what you can. You're welcome to stay and keep on trying, but we know you're gymnasts and do your thing. So we tried. We showed them what they knew we showed them what we could do, gymnastics and acrobatic and stunt wise. But we stayed all day and still didn't get all the dances. Mm-hmm. But he liked our tenacity, liked our attitude. And they picked up me and my two other buddies, not the girl, but just my two other buddies, because he liked the package of, this international feel of this like little blonde white kid and these two Cuban guys. And so they hired us. They flew me up early to choreograph some of the acrobatic sequences in the show. And that was 3 weeks. We did 2 weeks in Atlanta, a week in Spain. Blast. Such a freaking blast. 18 years old, just full of testosterone and stupidity and around all these beautiful dancers. And I was like, this is it. This is the life. But yeah, that was a blast. And then actually performing, being at the Olympics and then walking out on that stage and just being a part of that whole experience is next level. Absolutely next level. We were in the Olympic Stadium, and the Olympics ended with the marathon runners running through the stadium and doing their last, I think it was their last, actually, it was either a last 800 or 400 meters. Mm-hmm. And I was literally watching them in like the pit, watching them zip by, and collapsing at the finish line. And then 10 minutes after that, I was on stage, in front of the whole world. And that was an amazing experience that I always will remember.
Yeah, very cool. So what made you stop becoming like a stunt coordinator or getting in like, still being in like the theater world?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was a stunt coordinator. I was just kind of like the stunt actor, acrobat kind of thing. The stunt coordinator is a totally different, like they're actually putting together the stunts. So I hurt my back in 2001. I had a spondylolisthesis. So basically, the spine comes loose out of place, and mine was characterized also by what's called a pars fracture, is a little fracture inside the vertebral body in the vertebrae. And so this was during the Indiana Jones time, and it's a common ailment amongst gymnasts, and it was hurting. It was hurting, on my days off or when I was cold. We were tumbling a lot, doing 6 shows a day, and I think that just kind of aggravated over time amongst everything that I did. And it started hurting inside the show, and so the doctor, all right, and I was like, I got to go to a doctor. And then they, upon analysis, they're like, man, you are close to being paralyzed.
Whoa.
So they said, you're lucky to be in shape. You have a lot of musculature that's holding everything together, but we got to go in and fuse it. And we recommend you stop performing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the course I took. My undergrad is related to the exercise sciences. And so, no pun intended, fell back on my college degree. And again, falling back to what I call base is fitness, and started my career as a personal trainer.
Yeah, very cool. And so later on, like towards you went to SCAD as a grad school student. So as a project manager kind of deal?
Yeah, design management.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I've always been just a tinker. I just like creativity to me is like is part of my identity. Just coming up with ideas, thinking of new things, playing with different designs, whether it be new exercises or new pieces of equipment. And that's why I liked training people a lot, because to me, it was a cool little playground. I could come up with a certain exercise, test it, see how the body reacted to it. So it was fun. So I had a desire to create fitness equipment, and I was like, let me do something different. And I was kind of searching what I wanted to do, and so I got in. I ended up getting in SCAD. Just displayed some of the things I was just kind of playing with. I didn't necessarily have a portfolio, but I showed one of the directors, stuff I was working on. And he's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, there's something there that we could develop. And it ended up in design management. And design management, it's a little different it's a lot different from industrial design. What it's doing is basically you're overseeing design projects. You're doing a lot of design research. It taught me how to research. It was design school at SCAD was, it made me learn a lot about myself, because it made me realize how I think and what is the best environment for me to learn in. And design school was it. It was very non-traditional and very different from your typical academic setting. A lot of doing by playing, research, observation, and it just felt so natural to me. And it was kind of from there that kind of sparked it was the catalyst really for what Victory Grips was to eventually become, because it laid the foundation of how I approach ideas, how I approach research, and even how I approach life. It comes down to just being a silent observer, and just observe first, ask a ton of questions, immerse yourself, and just kind of figure things out. And that's exactly what I did to end up eventually creating the Grip Company.
Very cool. Very cool. And then later on, you actually started you actually owned a box, CrossFit Identity.
Yeah.
So obviously, like there's like different avenues you've gone to. So what made you? I mean, I know when did you get involved in CrossFit, and when did you decide like, hey, maybe I should just own my own gym?
Yeah, I graduated SCAD in 2009. Went to SCAD Savannah because there's an Atlanta campus and the Savannah campus. So went to SCAD Savannah, and then ended up getting a job with a startup company, kind of out by where you live. And that was a good experience because it taught me everything not to do in business. Anyway. So I started with that company, and that was just not going well. So I again went back to base, got a job at a gym that I had a job at before in Atlanta, and started personal training and doing group fitness instruction. I pretty much taught every damn group fitness thing you could probably think of. Mm-hmm. From step aerobics to spinning to high impact aerobics to body pump, and then of course personal training. That's just kind of what you did as a fitness person growing up in fitness in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so got a job again with Athletic Club Northeast, and there was a guy named Keith Walker who was a fellow trainer, and he was about 10 years older than me, fit as hell. And he's like, "Have you heard of CrossFit?" And I'm like, "No." And this is in 2009. So, I would say it's kind of like where CrossFit definitely was not hitting critical mass. It was just kind of really gaining speed as it progressed from California. And he's like, "Well, let's do a workout." And he said, and so he gave me Nate. The whole 20, with the ring muscle ups and handstand push-ups, kettlebell swings. And that was kind of like, that was just like giving me crack because I'm like, all right, so it's super intense. I got to do gymnastics work. And he's like, he goes, "You're going to have to do a muscle up." And he goes, "Here's what a muscle up is." So I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a muscle up," and he showed me kipping muscle up, and I'm like, "But muscle ups aren't kipping." Yeah. So I'm like, "This is a muscle up." And he's like, "Yes, that's a muscle up." So like in gymnastics, because the muscle up, a ring muscle up is not even on the code of points. Mm-hmm. It is just a way to get from point A, which is hanging below the rings, to point B up to a support position. So you could actually start a skill that is on the code of points. So I did Nate, and I was like, "Holy shit, I'm going to the games." And then, and then he's like, then he put a barbell in my hands, and I'm like, "I'm not going to the games." Yeah. So that was, it was really cool because, being in fitness all my life, being a gymnast, and then introduced to this methodology that was just so intriguing from a physiological and biomechanical point of view because of all the different aspects. It was like all of a sudden there was things that I got to learn again. Mm-hmm. I got to be a beginner, and I love being a beginner.
Yeah.
And so learning how to do Olympic lifting, trying to build my engine, because as a gymnast, we don't have an engine when you're a gymnast. I mean, you run 72 feet to a vault and you do like a floor routine, and that's it. It's very anaerobic. Mm-hmm. And I had no engine whatsoever. But I absolutely loved the intensity. I loved what everybody loves about it: the intensity, the camaraderie, it gave me an opportunity to compete again. Mm-hmm. And that was just a blast. And so it was I think it is a natural progression for any fitness person to end up going into CrossFit if they didn't discover CrossFit first. I just wish, I was 36 years old, and I wish I discovered it a lot earlier.
Yeah, I agree. Same with me too.
Yeah. So, but I got into it, but I feel it's still kind of early, in the big scheme of CrossFit and where it has become today. And so we started an affiliate in the Globo gym we were in. There was an old it was this athletic club had a bunch of racquetball courts because it was built in the 80s when racquetball was
Huge.
the
Yeah.
thing. So we took over a racquetball court, converted it into a box. It was a true box in the whole sense of the word. And we started getting people hand over fist. We started recruiting our own clients. We started kind of training them in that methodology.
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually said, okay, you are doing CrossFit. This is how you're being trained. We're starting to do group training. Started getting people, more and more people coming in, and it just exploded. We took over a second racquetball court, a third, and a fourth. And then the gym was they started putting stipulations on us because we were making the gym a lot of money.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we're like, we got to get out of here. And so we ended up getting out of the gym, finding a space down in the Virginia Highlands, Emory area of Atlanta. It was more towards Emory, and started CrossFit Identity. And it started out it was CrossFit Northeast Atlanta, or it was a big old long name, and we changed it to CrossFit Identity. And and it still exists today. So started that affiliate. Eventually my buddy Keith Walker, he wanted to get out of the business and do something else. I bought him out and then started running it. And then that's when I came up with the concept of the grips.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah. So speaking of Victory Grips, so what do you remember when the first idea popped in your head while working at the box?
No, ironically, it was not working at the box. It was just being around the box. But so in Atlanta during that time, my buddy from grad school, he was a master's of furniture student at the time, and we shared the same building. It was in the same building at SCAD that both degrees were in. There were several disciplines. It was industrial design, furniture design, design management, all in what was called the Gulfstream building at SCAD.
Okay.
And so he moved to Atlanta. He got a job in Atlanta, and we were, poor post-grads and all that. And, even though I had the gym, it was still, dealing with student loans and all that.
Yeah.
So we would just hang out at our house on our back deck in Atlanta and drink bourbon and come up with ideas.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of, you get the bourbon kind of gets the creative juices going. We would just have a blast playing music, talking about ideas. And then that's when the concept came up, and it was just like tunnel vision. And I went the next day, I went to Home Depot, got a bunch of different garden gloves and started cutting them up in different designs, because my whole thing was that I wanted the grips to feel and function like actual gymnastics grips do for the sport.
Yeah.
Gymnastics, but they needed to be redesigned specifically so that they work seamlessly within any given workout situation. And so that's where kind of the uniqueness comes from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So do you still have the first rendition of those gloves?
I do. I wish I had them right beside. So I don't throw anything away. When it comes to that, I keep all my various prototypes, and I'm constantly prototyping. It's just not I just did a design back then and it took off, and that's what it is. It's constantly changing. It's this evolution. To me, it's just it's like an ongoing project. It's a creative outlet. And it just, and it's fun. So I just want to constantly improve it. It's my sport now. It is my way of, I don't compete CrossFit anymore. I'm more focused on, health and longevity. But when it comes to the grips, it's my way of competing. So it helps me allow athletes to be better and perform better. But it's also my way of working on weaknesses as it pertains to the sport. I'm constantly looking at the way the grips could be more comfortable, perform better, different materials. So it's this ongoing project. And I keep absolutely every little scrap of material and idea, just so I take them out every now and then and stare at them and be like, okay, what am I missing? What am I not seeing today?
I can imagine what your garage looks like.
Well, actually, now it's just a full-on gym. Like the garage, we actually I used to do everything. I used to cut the grips, sew the grips, everything, 100% everything. We ended up running the company out of the gym, out of our garage. And eventually it's evolved. Now, we've outgrown that. Now my garage is just my gym. It's a full-on gym. And it's kind of like my lab. But now we're getting a big commercial space, in Savannah. We outgrew this. Once we outgrew our garage, we went into this smaller space. We're busting at the seams. So we got a new commercial space where I'm going to have a creative lab in there. And then we're also starting an affiliate, in Savannah. So it's all coming.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. So did you have other people test it out, or is it just mainly you testing it out?
No, it's like you can't work in a vacuum. And that's been a big part of the testing and the evolution of the design is getting them into the hands of the people that use them. And that's still constant to this day. So when I was formulating the concept and I had the gym, my members were my and I would just literally I was measuring people's hands, and they were they got at first they thought it was weird, but after a while they're like, oh, Vic is just doing his thing, because I'm measuring lengths of fingers and widths of hands and circumferences and just studying everything, observing people, looking at their hands, look at how they rotate over a bar, what they do with grips in mid-workout, asking people, it's like, why did you do that? With the grips? And they're like, oh, I didn't even realize it. And I'm like, and so, and then giving them to people. And once people, started, they're like, hey, these are actually pretty good. Can I buy them from you? And so it just started to where I would just sell them to them at cost, so I could just cover costs.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was able to have something that went to market. But today, whenever I come up with a new concept, I'm always reaching out to customers. Different customers may have different issues with our grips, whether it be body mechanics wise, size wise, various different factors. Some people go through grips faster than others for one reason or another. And I bring in customers and athletes of all abilities. And the games athletes, they're easy because they're their body mechanics are super good. They're very efficient.
Yeah.
And they make grips last. But it's your ordinary gym member, no matter what the size. It could be a dainty little, a $125 woman to a 250-pound, former football player, who's doing muscle ups.
Yeah.
So I get the gamut. And actually, I'm in the middle of testing, or about to start testing, something that's extremely important. And so I got about 100 athletes slated, 100 CrossFitters slated for that test.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So how many prototypes did you take? I think I read it. It said you had 20 prototypes before you made the finishing product.
Yeah, easily. It was over the course of 3 years or so. And a lot of it was it wasn't constant 3 years, kind of coming in and out of focus. If you study different, and I always thought God, man, I'm slacking. Why am I not focusing? But that's, if you look at various different artists throughout time, it's that in and out of focus, how creativity happens, not to compare myself to Da Vinci, but Da Vinci, that was he would come up to a painting like the Mona Lisa and just do a stroke and then walk away and not touch it for months.
Yeah.
So it was like this touch and go over the course of 3 years, and then it kind of snowballed as I gained more momentum. And it wasn't until like, do you remember Grid?
Yes, I was actually that was one of my questions of you doing the grid league too, but you went to Victory Grips, so I was just like, all right, we'll just stick to that. But yeah.
So Grid came along, and for those who don't know what Grid is, it was actually started by Tony Budding, who was the former media director. I believe that's what his name. It was like basically him, Castro, and Glassman were the faces of the company. And if you go back to the early days, like around in the 2009s, 10s or whatever, it was Tony Budding on YouTube announcing the workouts for the Open. He spun off of them and started this spectator sport called Grid. Cool concept. Didn't, that's a totally different story. But anyway, they had this huge combine of around the country, and every team needed a 40 plus or master's athlete, and you could specialize. And I filled both those roles, being a gymnast and being around 40. And I ended up making the New York Rhinos and on the first year. And on the Rhinos, I was on a team with Matt Frazier, Annie Thorisdottir, Easy Muhammad, Chelsea Hughes, and then I rode the pine behind Ron Matthews, Masters athlete. And then the next season I got picked up by the Phoenix Rise, where I was on a team with Marcus Philly, Bjork Odensdottir, Amanda Goodman, Blaine McConnell, who's now an Olympian in the bobsledding. And so that allowed me to take my specialties and also my age, and allowed me to be around these games athletes.
Yeah.
And allowed the venue to be in something that I wouldn't have in any other normal CrossFit circumstance been able to do. Mm-hmm. And I did it with the back in my mind. Well, one, I wanted to compete, and I thought this was a fun opportunity. It'd be a cool story. But also in the back of my mind is like, this is a great way to test the grips. Yeah. And so because of that experience, like, Annie uses our grips, and Thorisdottir still uses our grips. And Marcus is one of our athletes, long time, like we have a cool partnership with Marcus. Easy is, Easy Muhammad. He's still a good friend, and we work together on various projects. So that kind of really made things take off. What really made the grips take off, and it was just really serendipitous because my grips sweep around the pinky side of the hand for false grip protection. So in 2016, Castro announced that they're going to have strict muscle ups in the regionals.
Yep.
That couldn't have been a better situation, because that's what's one of the aspects that makes our grips unique. We have 8 patents on our grips, but that was one of the aspects of it. And Emily Bridgers, who was competing at the time, multi-time games athlete, lived in Atlanta, and I knew her from the Atlanta CrossFit scene. Mm-hmm. And I texted her and I was like, Emily, I know you don't wear grips, but I got, I saw your post. She posted her wrists were all jacked up from strict muscle up work. And I'm like, I'm coming over to your gym. Check these out. And she was a gym dog. She was
she's a Georgia Bulldog gymnast.
Yeah, exactly. And she didn't wear grips because there was nothing out there that she liked. Mm-hmm. And then she put my grips on. She goes, oh, wow. These actually feel like my gymnastics grips. And I was like, exactly. So, she's just a gracious, awesome person. I love her to death. And she posted, and once she posted, that made me realize the power of social media. Boom, it took off. I was like, holy shit. And we were just like, my wife and I were like, holy cow. We just did $1,000 in sales in one day. And, so, and so that really kind of between Grid, Emily, all these, interesting serendipitous aspects, that's when it really helped us get onto the scene.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah. And so I know, I think, to be honest with you, I think your Victory Grips are like one of the top, are the top grips in the market. Because I've tested a lot of them, and I've tested Victory Grips, and I like them. I'm a big fan of them, even though right now I'm wearing Bear Clawplex ones. So, but don't hate me. So, but yeah. So I know you said you were talking about like something in your pipeline. So can you talk about it at all, or do you want to hold off on that?
Well, yeah, I could allude to it. It's a new material. There might be some new design aspects. But to me, I'm always pushing it and learning from it. And I've been working with a company here in the United States that does materials, and we've just been like the same group of people that helped me with our tactical material, but we're improving upon that. So it's basically going to be like a new version of the tactical,
Okay,
but better.
Okay,
and
cool.
It's about where I want to go with it right yet, but I can tell you, it's going to be higher performing. It's going to be more comfortable. It's going to be more durable. So to me, it's a very important project, because my whole aspiration is creating the quintessential grip, and that's in design and material. So I just focus on me, even though, why are you wearing Bear Complex, man? What's up with that?
I just got off of Amazon, to be honest with you. So it was there. So
you don't sell on Amazon. One of the things is like, it's like I want to be like the Ferrari of grips, not necessarily the most sold, but the most sought after. And that's what I do. We don't sell on Amazon for various reasons, and a lot of it has to do with controlling our brand and our education. I'm big on education. And so I'm just like, to me, it's just not something I just want to throw out there and that people will rip real easily and all that. Like I have a lot of big standards when it comes to the grips and how they are, perform and the longevity of them. And I'm constantly, learning from it. I don't necessarily ever care what competitors are doing. It's kind of like trying to do a workout and you're always kind of looking at competition instead of focusing on yourself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I don't test their grips, for flaws or for, where, strengths or what have you. I have a whole cool, interesting guillotine test that I haven't displayed yet, where I could literally mimic how a grip is going to rip, like in what way, where the rip is going to occur, how it's going to occur, and how fast it's going to occur. And I call it the guillotine test. And okay. Basically I clamp a grip to a pull-up bar. And then I probably shouldn't be saying all this. So the grip is clamped to the pull-up bar. The wrist portion is clamped to a dumbbell. The dumbbell is clamped to a kettlebell, a chain and a kettlebell, and I drop it. There's a lot to it, but it is incredibly accurate. So I test my grips for how they're going to rip. It's like a crash test dummy, and I compare that to how other companies' grips rip, and I know exactly where their flaws are at. Mm-hmm. And so if my grips are not beating them, I'm not going to like release a certain design or a certain material. Like whatever I'm going to put in there has got to make sure it exceeds the strength and durability in that test alone, compared to other competitors. It's it's like a benchmark for me.
Okay. All right.
That's cool. How I pay attention to the competitors, and then just kind of seeing what materials they're doing, and they're like, yeah, no, still don't got me.
Yeah. Well, I have. There's one that I have that I was testing out, just trying it out. Not Victory. It was something else. We'll talk after about it. But all right, cool. So we're getting close to the end. So just a couple fire questions at you. So do you have any other goal? I know you said you have like a new, grip coming out. So do you have any other goals that you have, like personal or business wise?
We're starting in a CrossFit affiliate,
Yeah.
Victory Gym in Savannah. And then it's Victory Gym. The CrossFit name is going to be CrossFit Y'all because we're in Savannah.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah. So that's hopefully opening up May or June of this year.
Okay. How big is it going to be?
It's a 7,000 square foot building.
Okay.
So we're in construction right now. It's in downtown Savannah, and we're also going to be a chapter of Easy Muhammad's Project Onyx.
Okay.
So we're going to be working with kids of color in the Savannah area, empowering them through fitness. So I'm super excited about that. It's something that's very dear to my heart. So yeah, the gym, Project Onyx, that's the two business goals right now.
Okay, very cool. So do you have a favorite book you like to read or give out as a gift to people?
Oh, yeah. Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
Yeah, or Obstacle is the Way is another one. Yeah. Oh, another business goal we got coming up is we're starting Victory Gymnastics.
Oh, very cool. So is it kind of like I'm not sure. Is it kind of like Power Monkey?
No, we're gonna be designing grips for the actual sport of gymnastics.
Oh, very cool. Awesome.
Teaming up with, I got a buddy of mine who's an Olympian, and we're very close. We're hoping to launch that in Q3.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm going to be the first grip company that is in both the Olympics, on the gymnastics Olympic stage, and then on the CrossFit game side.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. So what would you tell somebody that's trying to get into the grip space, or even like making a product or like something, what to expect throughout the whole, life cycle of it?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily, be so narrow on if somebody's trying to get into the grip space, as opposed to, it's better to ask, if somebody's got an idea, no matter whether it's a idea that has to deal with fitness or any other type of idea, is to just do it. Action is what you got to focus on. Mm-hmm. and just be tenacious at it. Keep at it no matter what. And enjoy it for the love of just creativity. If something comes of it, it comes of it. Don't look at it. I never looked at the grip company and being like, this is going to be the way I support my family. Mm-hmm. I never looked at it that way. I looked at it like, this is a fun idea. This is pretty cool. I get to do this, and oh wow, I'm starting to, it snowballs from there, and you get those small victories. But do it just for the love of it, but stick with it. If you like it enough, just keep on playing with it. Come back to it, go back and forth, but just don't give up on it.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so let's just say you're on your last day of life in the world, and you have people talking to you, and one of the questions they ask is, how do you want people to recognize you after you leave?
I would say that it's kind of like, it kind of alludes to how I have all this, almost this little eclectic life of doing all these various different things. And I hope that somebody could look at my story and be like, this is, you don't have to be pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Into any one particular identity, and you can change your identity or your life or what you do on as you see fit. If it's story, life is this evolving story, and it doesn't have to be, and it's not linear. So I think if somebody looked back at my life and be like, yeah, I'm going to do that just because I can. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully I could be an inspiration in that aspect.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I'm a big fan of Screw It, Just Do It. So there's a book by Richard Branson called Screw It, Just Do It. And so that's pretty much how I started, type 1 lifting. I was like holding it back and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not ready to start it up yet. And then I'm like, screw it. Just put a couple shirts out and people buy it. If they don't, whatever, just do it.
I don't know why I never heard of that, because he's a great entrepreneur and an inspiration to me, but absolutely 100% right. Screw it. Just do it. I mean, it's like, if you don't like your job, just fucking quit.
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah.
One thing I've always said, if I retire, like if I ever do want to do anything else, it's like, I love working in the yard. And then it's like, I'm going to go work for a damn landscape company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of heights. I'll go work to an electric company and climb poles and make pretty good money.
Yeah.
But yeah, screw it, just do it. It's just part of a story. Life is a story. And if you're bored, write a new chapter.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally agree.
Your kids will love you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like you can tell your grandkids, be like, look, I did this, and this. And then they're like, wow, this is amazing. And then tell all their friends, pretty much. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on and just talking about, your, awesome, your adventure through life and actually making it to Victory Grips and being like the top, like the echelon of grips in the CrossFit space. So I thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, thank you.